There were some really low points in my life, and yes, there were times that work was not my priority based on my mental health, which I had neglected for so long. But that doesn't change the fact that Golden Boy built Canelo Alvarez, period. The company you fought under for decades has always had one name, and it's mine. So put some fucking respect on it. As for Jaime, he has always dared to be great, just as he's this Saturday night. And this serves as a bit of a full circle for him. Remember when Jaime was 21 years old, volunteered to step in against Triple G, and Canelo failed 2 drug tests? Though Jaime wasn't allowed to fulfill his dream, 2018, on Saturday night, he will do just that. Fulfill his dream and be world champion.
Tienen que escribirle lo que tiene que decir este pinche maricón, cabrón. Tú lo escribes. ¿Qué lo escribes, pendejo? Tú no escribes nada, cabrón. Tú no...
All right, it's getting hot in here. So, you know, after a mega fight over the weekend with Ryan Garcia versus Devin Haney, today we have Canelo Alvarez. It's supposedly supposed to be Munguia, but it's obviously not Munguia. It looks like it's going to be Canelo versus De La Hoya, but we will unpack all of this. Now, today, before we get started, I like to do one thing that I typically don't usually have to do, but obviously we were supposed to have one of the most influential boxing icons in the world and in boxing history on today. Unfortunately, there was a tragedy that happened in our circle that we are removed from that conversation because it's best to let people have to do some of the things that come first, and life and death situations are first. And with that being said, we like to send special condolences to Jackie Kallen and her family and all her friends. That Master Boxing is here to send, you know, a special warm outreach, and that we're here for you guys. Anything that we can do, it's just so important to pay attention to things that come with life, because we are not promised life. And every single day I wake up and I make sure that I say something that will touch at least one of you, because that's what life is about. It's about compound touching. And unfortunately, sometimes we lose people that we really love dearly. So my heart goes out to them. And, you know, we're keeping you guys in our prayers. And for those of you who are tuning in to watch today, what we're going to do is we're going to pivot. But before I go, I'm going to share something with you all. One of the most important figures in boxing that she brought to the table was the greatest fighter on Mount Rushmore. There's only 5, and he was one. And I'm going to show you a clip of one of the most influential movies when I was coming up, and we got to watch this. This is great, man. This is just good television. So I'm going to encourage you all to take a minute and check this out. But this is Against the Ropes.
Tired old man gonna be my trainer. What have you done? Let's hear some actual ring experience. You first.
That was Omar Epps, and here's another clip.
You're smart, you're pretty, and you're tough.
Dad!
Pretty tough can do anything. Remember that.
Did you take care of my bookie?
No, I stalled your bookie and your ex-wife.
Coffee.
Ever get the feeling you were meant for something more?
I won that fight.
I would have given you a draw. You deserved a draw.
You talk like you think you can do what I do.
I know as much about boxing as you.
Shah's contract. It's yours for $1.
Boom. It's yours for $1. Imagine getting James Toney for $1. Somebody got snubbed, but that was the effervescence of a disruptor being born, being birthed. The young girl was her as a child, right there at the boxing ring with her father, or making sure that when you're somebody here for something special, my entire advice to you is to be consistent, because consistency is what's going to be the thing that separates you from reaching your highest goal. So just remember, no matter what's going on in your life today, that consistency is the thing that's going to push you over that hill. Now look at what she was able to do to bring a person like James Lights Out Tony, one of the greatest. He's on Mount Rushmore. It's only 5 up there. Lights Out is definitely one of them. And I want you all to appreciate where you are in boxing history today. You have these guys today, like the Ryan Garcias, the Tank Davises, the Canelo Alvarez, Anthony Joshua's, Tyson Fury. You look at that pool of fighters, you got to go back to the 80s. Well, the 90s was good as well. But I mean, you guys are living in a historic moment where guys who are top fighters, if they would have gone back to the 80s, they'd been marketed because they understood both sides of the game. And you're talking about, you have a multitude of these guys today, even over in the UFC with Conor McGregor. Like, the game is expanded. So no longer do I look back at history and think about, oh, I wish boxing was like it was. No, boxing is what it is today. And with the help of you guys having the opportunity to share your stories, go out and get this smoke, because it's out here for you and it's available. Now, what we're going to do after I introduce our sponsors is get directly into the Canelo Alvarez Munguia fight. But first, we're going to really dive into this feud that's been going on between Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo Alvarez for some time now. But here we go. When we dive into this thing, I'd like to say special shout out to Jab Juice Consultant Agency. And the reason why it's important to understand who they are, because you have something that you want to get out there and you want to get your words out to the public and expand who knows about you. And what Jab Juice does, let's keep it plain and simple, is they make you famous for what you do. And that's what you need whenever you're trying to grow your business or your own personal individual brand. Jab Juice Consultants understand every layer of this thing. So it's one of the main reasons that I reach over 20 million people every month. I think this month, we've gone to 25. And that is the compound effect of doing it right. If your company is at that place where you're trying to hurdle over that next hurdle so that you can get to your next level, go to jabjuice.com, schedule your call right there, and take what you're doing to that next level, like these other athletes and influential people who want to rise in 2024. Now, back to the topic at hand. My guys, Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo Alvarez have absolutely no love lost between the two of them. But what you are seeing right now is the fact that these guys know how important it is for this fight to do big numbers. So it felt really, really, really calculated by De La Hoya to pick and choose this time to say what he felt about Canelo Alvarez, and that Canelo needs to put some respect on his name. Now, let's just say, for instance, that maybe that was the case. The timing, of course, is everything. And when you look at this, all of the shenanigans and the understanding of how to build a fight up with Ryan Garcia, he gave some of you an insight to what it may look like. And I think he encouraged Oscar De La Hoya to say, wow, that was what we call a hat trick. You're looking over here at the beer bottles and the smoke and the overweight appearance and the smoke and mirrors when he's saying he's really not training hard. And then you look up and here you go. He's knocking out or knocking down one of the top fighters skill set wise in the sport of boxing. He exposed that there aren't as many skills there as you want them to be. And that's what happens when you don't understand the 5 layers of defense, because that was the hole in his entire game. The game was exposed because you can't pretend to know it And then sometimes it don't show up. When you know it, you know it. It's just like blinking and breathing and taking a page from that conversation that Oscar De La Hoya saw Ryan Garcia do. And I'm just going to be clear. The fight was projected, you know, to do 1.5. I think Ryan Garcia said that, but it did 972,000 buys, give or take a few thousand, which is basically a million buys at $80 a buy. So they made $80 million. But we have to keep in mind when you have a sports bar and you order a fight, you pay between 15 upwards of 5,000 for it because you're going to be charging to get in. So the cable companies and the pay-per-views, they make sure that they get theirs. So with that being said, it's important that you understand the economics of these kind of events, how they get paid, how they monetize, and how they lose a lot of money in these current days because you have a lot of people that steal the stream and stream through social media. Now that's what hurts them, but you know, you have to compensate in other ways. So it's very important that maybe you guys now, as athletes or trainers coming into this game, you have to realize that you have to really table that conversation and learn how to make money off of apparel. And I can't wait for you all to learn multiple ways to make millions of dollars doing this the proper way and having the right machinery behind you. So be sure to stay tuned the beginning of the week next week. If you don't follow us, I think it's a good idea that you follow us because we're going to give you the gems. Now, if you're afraid of becoming a millionaire or making multi-millions of dollars at a time, then don't watch. Stay away from the show because what we're trying to do is make you think bigger and then show you the actual mechanics that go behind it. But I'm going to get right back to this fight. And the thing about it is Munguia is definitely a great talent. He has the wherewithal to fight. He has the mentality. He has the absolute perfect style for somebody like Canelo Alvarez, who loves an offensive fighter because there are three phases of boxing that Canelo Alvarez has gone through. And I'm going to let good old friend Claudia Trejos, who will be on the show very soon again, speak to this conversation that they had. And after that, you'll get to see my take on Canelo Alvarez. So listen to this and take notes because you remember this show is all about thought provoking, but we're educating you so that you will know how to prevent anything that you are not prepared for. It's all about prevention. Check it out. Claudia Trejos, Oscar De La Hoya, and the professor.
Canelo has been in a lot of wars, and so therefore his body is it's breaking down. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's the truth. And so you have a young guy like Munguia, who is bigger, probably stronger. You know, he has the youth behind him, and you know, I just feel that this is the perfect moment for the changing of the guards.
Canelo Alvarez knows all three phases of boxing. First, when he came into the industry, his focus was to hurt you with powerful shots consistently, throwing with reckless abandonment. He figured out over the course of time that he'd gas out if he continued to fight this way. So the second quarter of his career, he learned how to manifest the ring, become a ring general, and understand different techniques and skills and defensive mastery. And then here we are in the third quarter of his career, where he's understanding how to break a fighter down by choosing his shots wisely and understanding how to hit them with force. Herein lies a master when it comes down to understanding the sport of boxing. So you never underestimate what Canelo can do because he understands what phase of his career that he's in. So he understands what's necessary. He's doing what's required to be a legend in the sport of boxing. Canelo's a chameleon. Boom. And that's exactly what I'll do is elaborate. There are three stages that you experience in boxing. Stage one, Canelo Alvarez came in and he was full of combinations. He reminded me of a lot of different Mexican fighters. Like when you think about Chavez, and then I liked him because he reminded me of Roberto Duran, because most people don't throw combinations in bunches whenever they fight. And you can look at Devin Haney, you can look at Tank, you can look at Shakur Stevens, you're going to see a common thread. They don't throw punches in bunches, very, very sporadically when they do. Because right now you're fighting against guys that are high level. But when you go back and you watch Canelo fights, he was throwing 8, 10, 12 punch combinations. And the reason why that is because that's what he brought in phase one. He had the wherewithal, he got the opportunity, he was representing something, and he was shooting for the gold, meaning the gold is Chavez Sr. And those of you who don't know Chavez Sr., it can't be explained with words what he did for boxing. You're talking about a man that was probably 16 months from being 100-0 if he had the opportunity to overcome Frankie Randall. But, 89-0 at one period of time, there's no words for that. So when you dice it up, phase one was him showing the ability to throw combinations in bunches, and he was throwing them hard. They were not pity pat shots. He was throwing leverage shots, knees bent, executing uppercuts, hooks, rake you to the body, back to the head, overhand rights, up jabs. These combinations are not for the faint at heart. The kind of courage that you must have and possess, you have to have those kind of skills in your tool shed. Canelo Alvarez was the only one in boxing, it doesn't matter what weight class, that were throwing combinations as if he was working pads with. Roger Mayweather slowed down with heat, though. When I say slowed down, Roger would throw 1,000 per quarter of a round, but Canelo was throwing at that volume, but slowed down enough to put smoke on each one. Another guy who does a lot of quick hands and release is Coach Patrice Harris out of DC. I told you guys, the Northeast, when you talk about bringing the smoke, if you want to understand true killers, these are the kind of guys you don't want to be in front of. When he's putting your hands together, he's putting hands together for you. So when you get into that ring, you're letting your hands go. I mean, you're literally breaking down the molecular structure of a man by placing those punches. And that's what Canelo was doing in combinations, fluently, power, speed, executions, high connect percentage. He would go up under your armpit, up under your rib cage, break you on the feather rib, stick you to the liver, back to the head, uppercut to the chin, tap you on the back of the jaw, and then ring the doorbell with your earlobe. That was an absolute masterclass of boxing. So what happens when he got into phase two? Because what he was experiencing was he was getting to a place where he was getting exhausted. If you go back to the Austin Trout fight, special shouts out to Austin if you're watching. When you were banging with him, you started to gas out because that was when Canelo was introduced to more weight training, strength. He was obsessed with it. If you pull up Canelo Alvarez versus Austin Trout, he looked almost like he does now, but he was fighting at 154 then. But what was happening is he was getting introduced to growth and size, and you can take this as you may. Coaches, you trainers, you have to be the mentors for these fighters, because what's happening is these guys who are in the training business, CrossFit or whatever, they think they can take a fighter. Doesn't matter if you're MMA or boxing. The minute you start implementing weights, the minute your fighting skills drop, and you think you're improving, but what's happening is the guy who's consistently just fighting it while you're at that gym 2 hours, 3 hours training, doing all that CrossFit, as Anthony Joshua, doing all that CrossFit, doing all those battle ropes, and doing all of that heavy squats, all of those different deadlifts, getting maxed out, hitting bench work, saying, I'm not going so heavy. Look, the more time you spend in that area, the less you are able to execute what you need to. I know, because I did it, because I was working with guys who were super fast, and you're fighting and you're building muscle. What's going to happen is you're going to deplete your abilities to maximize what you can do in the boxing ring or in the octagon. I don't care who it is. Conor McGregor's taken a long time to develop to fight again. It's one thing after the next. And one of the things it was because he was walking around about 200 pounds. And he knew if he got in that octagon, he was struggling when he was fighting Nate Diaz with oxygen. He was struggling when he got in the boxing ring against Floyd with oxygen. Now he knows once you start lifting for a look, you stop gaining the prosperity in your fighting game because it takes and requires oxygen. And if you're breathing properly and you're svelte in your natural avatar, you are an absolute monster. You look at Max Holloway just a couple of weeks ago, the week before Ryan Garcia's fight. That's what a fighter looks like. You look at Bernard Hopkins, Sugar Ray Robinson, Sugar Ray Leonard. That's what a fighter look like. When you start trying to become a fight model, you do that for, the magazines, but you don't do that for the ring. So be careful. But when you see these scenarios, what you want to do is think about what can I do to get myself to a place. Don't let somebody tell you this is what you need. You have to understand what those things are used for. The molecular structure of the human body. There's the bones, there's the ligaments, tendons, blood flow, and you have the exterior layers. All right. So you want to make sure that when you're doing your training, that you're optimizing muscle, active muscle, not linear movements. Don't think you're going to improve as a fighter with linear movements. I've worked with over 40, well over 40 world champion fighters. In no case did one say, I'm going to start lifting and that's going to be the prime focus for my strength and development. Zero. Once you start gaining muscle, we know we're going to beat you to death in the ring. Sparring. You won't survive well in smokers, right? I don't care who co-signs on that because, we know this is not me. This is science. And what happens when you're training your body and you're trying to develop a better fight game, but you're building more muscle, the muscle is taking the blood and sucking the oxygen directly from it because it needs it to survive. Now you've expanded the muscle. Now it's sucking the oxygen out. And the only thing you have in the muscle left that's stagnant is the lactic acid. So you're feeling extreme burn. And that's what was happening to Canelo Alvarez in the second phase of his career. I mean, first phase, and then he realized in the second phase, he learned how to get into more of the shell. He started focusing on 5 layers of defense and understanding shoulders, elbows, knees, mind. All right. Understanding how to use those hands. Bing, 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 pop, pop, pop. And that's what he cultivated and fighting against Daniel Jacobs. If you just type in Canelo Alvarez versus Daniel Jacobs highlights, you're going to see Canelo, formerly known as a volume puncher, turn into a defensive master against one of the best defensive fighters in the amateur ranks in New York ever, and a world champion in Daniel Jacobs. And he made him look like he had never been in the ring against a boxer, and he made him feel like he's never understood what slick boxing is all about. And this is where it all started to cultivate. And then no one was really able to touch him until he went up to 175, got a title, and then faced someone who really had a great boxing pedigree and a really solid jab. And he could not figure it out. And it looked like he was going through things in his life at that point in time. It doesn't look like vintage Canelo, but without carrying that torch down that lane, he comes back and redeems himself in a most violent kind of way, just like Canelo. But phase 3 of his career, he's understood. Instead of wasting all that energy, I want to be strong. I want to do damage. In phase 3, it's all about calculating what you're doing in a manner in which people, when they see you, they say, wow, he's hurting that guy. And that's what he does. What he's in now is called the hurt business. And some of you have heard that phrase. You don't quite understand what it is. other people really got to say that this is not something to play around with. So let me see. Let me see. There's a couple of questions out here. Absolutely. What's up, Harold? It's good to see you, brother. Let me see one more. That's my man. What's up, Money? What's good, brother? Yeah, I appreciate you, man. Yeah, we try to do what we do, and we've been doing this for over a decade on YouTube. And our thing is to make sure we give you guys the information. So behind the scenes, and this is what it is, that you understand the phases of this boxing game. Because if you're taking someone through the game, you got to understand the layers. You got to understand the business. And that's one of the reasons I would have loved to have had, Jackie Kallen up there today. But we'll definitely redo this thing because it's going to be absolute fire. But Canelo, he understood all three phases. So he's not delusional. He knows he's in there against a young gun. And Oscar De La Hoya saying that Canelo's old, he's battle tested, but he's battle tested. He's battle tested. And he understands what phase of the sport that he's in. And when you understand what phase you're in, you understand how to be calculated. If you date back, you think about Floyd. Floyd was really retired after he won his fight against in 2013 after he fought Cotto. That was the end. Boom. That was the toughest fight. The second half of that fight was the toughest fight he had ever been in. If you go back and you watch 30 Days of May, that was Floyd Mayweather documentary when he went and had to do that 3-month period of time. When you go back to that, after he got out of the ring with Miguel Cotto was not playing. After he got out of the ring, he got in the shower. He stood there naked for about 30 minutes. He said, I hit him with everything. I hit that dude with everything. And he wouldn't go nowhere. He wouldn't go nowhere. That's what Drago said about about Rocky. That was like a movie. He was like, I was hitting him with uppercuts, hooks, overhands, straights. He wouldn't go nowhere. See, some of you think you understand boxing. I'm not a fighter in the ring. You know why? Because if you're going to fight in a boxing ring, you got to have the actual pedigree to get up every single day and go run 3, 4, 5 miles or swim or cycle or have a active muscle training cardiovascular specialist work with you in a multitude of ways that you can actually get your cardio to a place, even if you're working on Jacob's ladder or using our systems called British Go. Understanding the cardiovascular system. If that's not the case, you'll realize this. There's something that a fighter has that regular people don't have. When I had Andre Durrell on the show, when I had all of the fighters, I have so many different people that do it. They can never explain to you what other layers are there. Can I fight one fight? Yeah, I felt like I can beat anybody one fight. I sparred against all of these cats that I had under our banner when it was required. But can you do that as a career year after year? No, my brain was so really prepared for other things. I saw different areas of the sport. So a fighter is an actual gladiator. Hence is why if you haven't fought, you got to understand why it's not the important part of this thing for you to be a coach of these fighters, the guy who go to the corner, the guy who has the final say in the training, because there are certain things that you will never have had ignited that you need to know about, and you need to understand the feeling. I stood in the ring and sparred for 34, 35 rounds. Not because I was so conditioned, it's because I understand how to breathe and I understand how to take away what you do best. And I understand that this is a lifestyle that the guy got to have, and you got to show every fighter where their holes is, and that's what I did best. And that's why I was a tactician. And most of the people that get into the game, you got to realize what a fighter is built like. A fighter is like if you walk by a gate and it's a rock water there, there's a reason why there's a gate there, because there's this switch that they have. And you have to build upon it, build upon it, build upon it. By the time that guy's midway through camp, there's no human being that can do anything with that person. He's not a human at that point. You have to do that over and over and over and over again, fight after fight after fight after fight. And you got to decide, can I do that? No, that's not me. My projections is to impact the sport in a multitude of other ways. But when you got to do that for 25, 35, 45 camps, you got to make a real decision. Is that who you are? Because a true fighter, a true gladiator is born one and they die one. At any point in time of their career, they always got one more fight left in them. Like they said, an old adage, I ain't as great as I once was, but I got one more in me that I can be greater than I ever was. And every fighter has that one fight left in him, just in case he has to crack the briefcase and bring that thing out. He's preserved it. Andre Ward, these guys who retired, Lennox Lewis, they retired and they let the game go before the game got the best of them, but they always got that one. Though, do they have the same talent as before? No, but they have a wherewithal that they've never had. Age, experience. Experience says. And that's what's so important about knowing who you are, knowing what role you play. That's why there are 12 trainers that's supposed to be in a camp. But most people don't understand the roles that go in there. And if you know who you are, then you know your talents, then that's where you got to know where to place yourself. You know, you're born to fight. And boy, my first fight, I was 4 years old. So understanding you're a fighter because you fight all the time. Is that your career? No. Is that what you know you do best? Yeah. You manifest. So remember, when you're doing this game, make sure you get into the proper lane. I think I got into the proper lane. I think I understood how to promote individuals, promote people, guide coaches, guide fighters, lead them, encourage the others. No one on planet Earth understands the human body like I do. I've proved it in 4 phases and 4 different careers dealing with the human body. Very few people have written more books than me in the world, over 30. So know who you are, know what you bring, and know what you can do for the sport. Because it takes gladiators to gladiate, and it takes leaders to guide those guys, and mentorship to mentor their minds, and advisors to give them proper advice. So it's so many different layers. And when a fighter like Tank, when a fighter like Canelo loses their mentorship, Tank lost Floyd by choice, Canelo lost De La Hoya by choice. You see them typically go off the rails. Adrian Broner lost his mentorship. He still had his father, but the guy who was closest to him that he emulated, the guy who had an affinity for, that kind of went away. So he didn't have somebody. And you can go off the rails a little bit. Special shouts out to the legend. Special shouts out to the Broner, Team Broner. We always edified the great fighters who deliver what they got, because I knew, I don't care what anyone thought of him or think of any of these guys. Can you get up every day and run 5 miles? Can you do that as a career? No. That's why there are so few great fighters. All right. So find your lane, get in your lane, be in that lane. Are you great at understanding people? Are you great at business? Are you great in the other aspects of it? Are you a great promoter? Are you a great manager? Are you willing to sacrifice it all? Because that's what you have to be able to do. in order to get to that level. And that is boxing. That's understanding the precipice of what you're watching. You're in a great time. Canelo Alvarez is one of the greatest fighters in boxing history because he's transcended and reinvented himself. Jaime Munguia is a good fighter. I love watching action fighters, and he's an action fighter. Anybody got questions, dropping down in the comment box? I see a lot of popping down here over on YouTube. What's going on, my man? Let me see. What's your name, Echelon? And if you got questions, drop them, because what we do is take your questions, and what we'll do is we'll highlight them in the next show and we'll get into it. But right now, YouTube, you kind of blowing up. I got to take a pause and step back, and I got to share what we're going to do for you guys this weekend. And I want you to all remember last fight with Ryan Garcia, we called it. We had an audience of over 130,000 people collectively, over 100,000 just on TikTok. So the crowd response for me calling the live fight of Ryan Garcia versus Devin Haney. I'm going to play one little short clip from that if I can find it quick on my computer. And what I want you all to realize is that when I do this kind of stuff, I do it because it gives you more of a real bird's eye view. And I appreciate seeing some of the guys who really have an appreciation for knowing what they're seeing now, because without that being said, that's what we're doing. I want you guys to understand what I understand after being in over 40 world championship training camps and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. It's, let me take this and I'm going to pass it over to you. What I'm going to do is share. I'm going to take it out over here on TikTok real quick. TikTokers, y'all got to pause for 1 second. I got to show my people this me call. Oh, I sent it to my boy. Check this out, because I think you guys can appreciate this. And this is what we're going to do again. No, for those of you who think I'm going to stream the fight on no, I'm not doing that. But I totally am going to show it to you, because I want you all to have an appreciation for the fight like never before. Listen to this. Let me pull it out. That ain't it. That's it. But that's on Instagram. So I'm going to show it to you from my phone. Y'all got to see this. Man, I forgot that I didn't have it right here on my phone. But please be patient, because this is what we're going to do Saturday. And no, like I said, when you get the opportunity to have an appreciation for the sport and know that you actually do this for a job. I remember my buddy said to me when he walked into the gym for the first time, and I taught him how to fight. When we grew up in the roughest hood on the East Coast, literally did. And I had to teach guys how to fight. Did any of you have a guy that you looked up to? Well, I was the guy that would help you learn how to fight. And he laughed. He ended up he's still one of the most dangerous men to ever walk the face of America. But it was funny because he walked in the gym and said, I can't believe we grew up doing this and now you do this. And this was fight's about to jump off. So Ryan Garcia comes out, throws a hook that misses. Nice jab by Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia, his footwork looks better, and he's throwing feints. Devin Haney is kind of moving backwards, and he's trying to hold his ground, but Ryan appears to be stronger in his stance. He looks confident. His posture is really good, and he's throwing a probing jab. 2 combinations, 4 combination piece by Ryan Garcia. Oh, he rocked Devin Haney. Devin Haney's hurt. First round. He ties up Ryan Garcia violently. Oh my gosh, Ryan Garcia is really coming with everything. He's like, bam, that was it. Like, I was telling you prior to the thing happening, I noticed particular things that was going on that most people didn't see. I saw that Ryan was already stable and his level of confidence. It was like he knew he was fighting a lesser fighter. There were so many things into play that night. And that was live. That wasn't, I didn't have the video on the screen. That was added in post. But having that being said, I don't know what you guys think about who you think gonna win. Is it time for Canelo to throw away the hand over the throne? But when it's all said and done, I do think that we're watching a special time where you guys will get to understand how important is it that you learn the phases of boxing. And when a fighter understands the stage of boxing that they're in and how to adapt in that moment and how to be the best version of himself. And it's all about being clear on who are you actually, not what your camp has blown your head up to be, but who are you actually right now in the sport of boxing. Special shouts out to everybody who chose that career to do it, because you'll never get the credibility that you're going to get, because you're going to have your hate and you're going to have people who don't realize what goes into it, the phases of camp. If people understood how many peak weeks I've got to see fighters truly show who they truly were, the transformation of a person from a person to a droid, to a humanoid, to a demigod. You haven't seen it before. I got to see 7 Olympians, gold medal Olympians, do that. You just haven't seen it. You just haven't seen it. You just got to understand, when you're going down this lane, when these guys, you got to respect these fighters. And I know, the banter you guys throw out here, but just when you see or come across fighters, man, tip your cap, because you can't do what they do. You think you can. You can sit on the screen and watch and pick out everything they do wrong. You can't fight. You can't. Because the minute you go in there, everything is not what you thought it was. Everything is not what you thought it was. And if you had a little success because you went in there early and did it a little bit and thought, oh, I can do this, well, you just keep going in there until the levels change. Because the levels change. As Stephen Haney. Special shouts out to the Haney family. Always stay respectful. Never made excuses in that ring. Always gave up credibility. Y'all, that is a man, multimillionaire, under the age of 25 years old. Him and Ryan Garcia. It shouldn't be anybody talking junk about men who go out there and put their lives on the line. And there was a unfortunate occurrence earlier here in Miami. Unfortunate that we lost a fighter, and he's actually down in the gyms. When you're down here and the fighters are sacrificing and putting their lives on the line to feed their families first, but at the same time, they are trying to make money. Let me see. I'm gonna read out a little bit more about this. This young man his name was Aldi, and in Dembo, and he was a heavyweight boxer. And unfortunately, what I was mentioning is that these guys are gladiators, and everybody's in the ring that has gloves on is that gladiator. And you got to take it serious. And if you don't have proper people around you, and if you're one of these guys it's one of you and you got your fighter, and you don't have 6 to 8 other eyes watching the things that you're doing. So you're watching what he's doing, but there are other things that have to be done. If you don't understand that, my advice to anyone is to learn about areas that you don't know about. We have education for trainers who are up and coming. You got fighters. It's called the Coach's Corner. Just ask about it. DM us and ask about it, because there are so many things that you got to learn. I learned it over 4 decades. 4 decades. 4 decades. I was doing that, like doing it under the greatest boxing minds that the sport has ever seen. Responsible for more winning than any coaching team. That's where I was learning from, and I'm no stupid guy. When you learn what there is to know, because both of these guys were on the Olympic committee as well and pro coaching. You learn so many rules and so many things that you will never have access to as a regular guy. And you got to have 10 brains because you have so much content and so much to learn about rules and regulations in every state. It changes and sanctioning bodies and these commissions that have their focus in their state. It's very, very robust what you have to learn. So the coach's corner, you go to the DM and just say, hey, coach's corner, I need to learn more about that. You learn how to move your fighter, rules and regulations, how to actually work corners the proper way. What do you not know? And I know I don't look it, but I'm in my mid 50s. So I've been through a lot and I know a lot about this game, about this sport. And I took mentorship serious. I was under the tutelage for 15 years before I bounced out onto my own to do it in my own world. And Master Boxing LLC has been in existence since 2004, the turn of the century is when I made it real, because the mentorship and the being a prodigy, it was over. Now it's you go out here on your own too. So think about it. If you don't have enough people in your corner, that means you're having opportunities for people to pluck who you are, because you need all the eyes. There was Coach Melvin, who would actually get in the ring as the tactician, or to test the fighter's skill, everything he's developing, because he was fluid, he was a former fighter, understood how to move, understand how to groove. Then we had Pops. Pops was 17-1 as a professional fighter from New York City, New York State, understood tactically how to get the guy into the ring. And he understood things about boxing that no man really does, because most fighters aren't cut out to be good coaches. Well, he was a great mind. He was a Custia model mind. We sat and watched fights. I remember we sat and watched Arturo Gotti, Floyd Mayweather. We sat and watched Diego Corrales versus Castillo. Just sitting there with a person with a mind like that. Now, he gave me credit too. You know, he really appreciated me, how I came into the game. I was a little snotty-nosed, wet-back little kid from New York. I mean, kid from nowhere, nowhere, absolutely nowhere. And when I got my opportunity, he knew exactly what it was. He saw my abilities, he saw my talents, and he just was, and I couldn't believe that I had a legendary guy, Pops, RIP, brother. Love you. I love you. You did so much for my confidence, because when you're coming up in the game and everybody's already a legend, and you got to earn your spot, you got to earn your position, you got to know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? That's special. And then I got the opportunity to work with Junebug, aka Paul Williams, coach. I got to win a title with my people up in Baltimore back in 05, knocking out Ron Bellamy, 6'8", absolute crazy mohawk, just scary figure. Having these people and opportunities to learn from just people who were doing it, have been doing it 40, 50, 60 years. That was special, man. And you do this, you got to know that this is not a game. These guys, I was naming the people that were actually playing a role and what role they were playing in the gym. Coach Ellis, who also was a fighter, knocking guys out with the 1-2, had a very, very sturdy Larry Holmes kind of Bone Crusher Smith kind of fight style. Very old school. Hands up, hide the right hand behind the jab, and bam, would knock you out with a headgear on, practicing, just could hit, understood how to punch you like Pinklin Thomas straight through your face. Like he understood the rule of punching through a person. So when you lack power, he was that coach to keep boxing simple for you. Hands up, throw that jab and hide the right hand. Wow, learn you mastered the art of sitting down on your punch. And he was such a master that when someone came in there with style and no experience, that he always found a way to say, I don't understand that. Because you see, what worked for him was the only thing he knew. That's why you got to be careful only having one type of coach in your corner. So he didn't understand the things that I was doing is what I did know. And he would always come by and touch me on the arm and show me, like raise it up or something when I'm working with an actual fighter. One of them being Ray Mercer at one time doing things and drills with guys like that who I was watching on television fight against Lennox Lewis, fight against Evander Holyfield. Like, I can't even tell you, euphoria. I was like, this is my job. But when he would do things, he did it with all respect. But it drove me batshit crazy. And if you are in training, if you're a trainer right now and you got a gym and you're training now, and then you ain't got nobody to really correct you, you'll not like it. But man, now that I look back at it, I understood how important that is, because that man seeing something that you ain't seeing because you looking at somebody else. You ever look down at your phone and looked up and you almost running into something, running through a stoplight, running into a sign, almost bumping into another car because you're not paying attention. You can't see everything when you're one person. So you best build your team up the right way, because boxing is real. So I'm not going to keep this thing going. Just know that I'm going to have this thing popping for next week, this weekend. And I hope you guys take time to join us over here. Whether if you're on YouTube, make sure you chime in. If you're on Facebook, make sure you click the link, because we will be calling the fight live. And it's going to be as exciting as you could possibly ever imagine. And it's excitement. It's another great fight. And when you see this, you're going to hear how I viewed the fight from a standpoint that will help you gain further clarity as a young coach, or if you're a fighter. It's just how it has to be when you're operating at the highest level of boxing. And it's my privilege to talk you through. And I was a handicapper too, so just letting you know. Bing, 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 the fight show live Saturday night for the main event only. So it'll be, I guess, about 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Eastern Standard Time. Let me see what you're talking about, champ, over here on YouTube. I like to make sure called it. We knew the possibilities. Thanks, coach. Absolutely. Pugilism. What's up, brother? It's good to see you, man. Let me see. I got to get my man. He always got some good stuff to say. Mongia Canelo style clash lines up like a recycle Amir Khan. Oh, that's cold, pugilism. That's cold. C is projected for Khan and BJ's result for Canelo. Well, it's the fight game. People underestimate Canelo. They think he's just going to go in there and just lose to a guy because, he's going to lose to the guy. It's going to be exciting. Pugilism, you got to hop on Saturday night. I mean, it's going to be absolutely live. Like I said, we had over 100,000 people live last time, and I didn't even realize it. That's how excited it was to do. So thanks for taking the time to tune in with us, and make sure that you know that when we call the fight, we're going to tell you secrets behind the sport of boxing that you really don't understand. 90% of it that it'll be something that you never heard before, and that you can use as you move into your career. If you're thinking about getting into the sport, you'll learn a lot of different things. But if you're a trainer right now and you don't understand everything that's going on around you, make sure you inquire about the Coach's Corner, because that's the place you need to be. That's my advice to you if you want to do this thing the right way. But for all of you guys who fought before and that you really laid it down in the professional rankings, thank you. Nobody's going to give you your flowers while you're alive like this. I don't know exactly who's watching, but it's always a multitude of former fighters, professionals, legends, Hall of Famers watching. I want you to know that it didn't go unseen. And 99.9% of the time, I got it on video. And if you ever want to watch it together, holler at us. Get with our guys in the School of Boxing. We'll do a film study on watching your old fights. But until next time, I want you guys to be blessed at God's speed and hold your faith high, because everything that you want is coming to you. Just stay focused. Keep your eyes on the prize. Never look back. And it doesn't matter what they say about you, because you're going to have the final say in this thing. Tune in Saturday night, and I'll see you guys soon in the winner's circle. Coach Bradley signing out. Peace.